In this video, I'm going to show you how I weave in some of my ends using my azalea top here as an example. There are lots of ways to do it, so I like to say there aren't really any wrong or right ways, there's just lots of different options. So I'll just be showing you some of the methods that I like to use. So the first area that I want to focus on is right over here. So this is where I had joined my yarn when I was fading in a new skein. When I'm working back and forth, I tend to join a new skein by knitting with both the old skein and the new skein for the first stitch, and this secures the new stitch. But when working in the round, doing that can sometimes cause a bump that is just a bit too visible sometimes. So in the case of azalea, I just started working with a new skein, not attaching it to the old skein in any way. So as you can see here, there's some looseness right here where you can see where I joined it. So let me show you how I weave in my tail here so that you'll hardly notice it at all. So the first step is to turn the work inside out so the wrong side is facing you. So now that I have the wrong side facing me, here was the tail I had left when I joined that new skein. And you can see there's that looseness right around here. So first I'm going to thread the tail through the end of my tapestry needle. And I'm just using a regular bent tip tapestry needle, but any type of tapestry needle will work. It doesn't necessarily have to have the bend in it. So the technique that I often use when weaving in ends is utilizing a duplicate stitch, which means you're basically just threading the tail. You're sort of tracing the stitch on the wrong side. So let me show you how that will work in this case. So here's my tail coming out right here. Because I want to cinch up this hole, I'm going to trace around this stitch here, and that will help tighten things up a little bit. So I'm going to go into this loop right here. So I'm coming out of here, I'm going to go into this loop, and then I'm going to go into the upper loop right here. Then I will pull my tapestry needle through and then give it a little cinch. Now I don't want to cinch it too tightly because then that can distort and tighten up all the fibers around it. You just want to give it just a little bit of a cinch. And what I start to do is I will just constantly be checking the right side of my work back and forth just to see how it's looking. And as you can see, it actually did a pretty good job. It's still just a little bit loose right over here. And we'll see what we could do about that. So sometimes what I'll do if I'm not sure whether or not where something is sort of poking through, if I know there's a little looseness right here, I'm going to take my tapestry needle and just sort of poke it through so I can make sure I'm in the right spot. So it's sort of at the below area there. So then I'll just undo that. There we go. So what I'm going to do is actually retrace that area one more time. So here is my needle coming up over here. So I'm going to go back down into this loop. Again, just sort of giving it a little bit of a tightening. And then I'm going to go back up in this loop. And give it a little tightening. Then I'm going to turn it over. And that's looking pretty good. There's just this one stitch here that I'm feeling like is a little bit loose. And if you see something like that, it could be as simple too. I'm just again going to poke my tapestry needle so I can kind of see where this is coming. So it's right in this stitch here. So sometimes you can just even tighten it up this way and see if that helps. And it really does actually. Now you really can't see. It's very minimal where that join was. So utilizing that duplicate stitch to kind of go in and out, and as you can see, it's really kind of seamless even on this wrong side, tracing each stitch. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I tend to still leave a longish tail even before I block, just in case things loosen up at all during the blocking process, that you'll still have enough of a tail to be able to do some more weaving in should you need to. So for the tail that's above it, we're going to do duplicate stitch again so I can show you. It wasn't very visible on the right side, so I'm just going to put my finger there. This tail wasn't visible at all where it joined. So I'm not too concerned about trying to cinch up any holes or anything over there. It's more just making sure I'm securing this tail. So let's do that duplicate stitch again. So we're tracing around a stitch, and sometimes it really helps to kind of lean in closely to see how how the stitch sort of, let's see, let me try to guide it over here. See how it kind of goes, there's a loop that goes here, and then it goes under this, and then under this. So I'm just going to I'm going to stick my tapestry needle into this loop, and then into that loop. And I will just pull it up, and then I'm going to trace into the next stitch as well, which would be going down into this loop and then back into this loop. And if it's tricky at all to see here, because this is thinner yarn, I'm going to post a link in the YouTube description to a photo tutorial I have on my blog where I use chunkier weight yarn, and it might be a little bit easier to see, but it's the same process. So that's all I'm going to do. This tail was pretty secure as it is. And as you can see, I mean, it is pretty invisible right there. So for this end, because there was no hole that we were cinching up or anything, I feel more confident I can trim this one pretty good. But even so, I still leave a little bit of a tail just in case I need to do anything to it after blocking. Another area I want to show you is at the underarms. So that's another area up here that definitely had some looseness around it. And we're going to be working this similar type of duplicate stitch to cinch this up. So by tracing each of these stitches, we're sort of tightening up each stitch. So I have actually on this side, I have a bunch of different tails that I can sort of choose from to work with. I'm actually going to go with this one. It seems like it's the longest. So I will thread it through my tapestry needle. Okay, so first thing is I'm just going to, because my tail is up here and sort of the problem area starts around here, I'm just going to thread it through this area right here first, just to bring it down a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to start with this side over here. So we definitely have some looseness around this stitch. So first I'm going to see sort of how the stitch is created. So we have this strand that goes under this loop. So I think, and again, there is no right or wrong way to do this. A lot of times when I'm weaving in ends, it's trial and error. I'll try to go into certain loops to do the tracing, and then I take a look, see how it looks. If I'm not happy with it, you can easily undo it and try again. So to start, I am going to insert my needle into this loop down here, just like that. And then, because I want to trace this shape here, I'm going to go into this loop, and then I'm going to go into the loop above it as well. And then we'll see what that looks like. And give it a little cinch. So see how that just really, that right away closed up that gap just by tracing around that stitch. And then we have some looseness next to it as well. So I'm going to do a similar process. Let's see. So my yarn is sort of up here. So I think what I'm going to do, it might even help just to go into this loop that's right here. And see how just by going in that upper loop and giving it a little tightening, it's sort of closed up that gap here. And then I'm going to go down here just so I'm sort of circling it. And then it will go back up here. Okay, from this side, it looks pretty good. So let me flip it to the right side so we could just take a quick look and see. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. You really don't see any of the looseness at all. Now, if you did still see something, or if something had happened and maybe the tail was starting to show on the right side of the work, the great thing about weaving in ends is you could just undo it. So I'm going to show, even though I'm happy with how mine was looking, I'm still going to show you how you can undo it. So I just took it off of my tapestry needle, and then I'm going to utilize my tapestry needle to kind of undo. So let's say it was just that last move I wasn't happy with. What you can do is tug on your yarn, and this helps to show you where the yarn was coming out of. So by tugging it, I see it's tightening right here. So I'll just stick my tapestry needle into that loop. Yep, and I sort of give a little tug at first just to make sure, okay, that is the right area, right? And it is, because I see my tail moving. And you just pull it out just like that. And you would do the same thing for the next one. So sort of give it a tug, and I see, okay, here it is. It's coming from here. Okay, just pull it out. And that's it. So it's trial and error. Don't be afraid to undo and try again. Another area I want to show you about weaving in is up here towards the neck. So here's a tail from when we had done a 3-needle bind off. And see how there's just a little bit of looseness right around here? Well, we can weave in the end in such a way that that tightens that up just a little bit. Now, if I had picked up stitches around here, which is not how the pattern is written, but if let's say you had wanted to pick up stitches around here, that would have hidden any of that looseness there. But because this is a raw edge, you might still have some of that looseness. So it's going to be similar to the other ones that I demoed with the duplicate stitch. So I'm just going to kind of turn this so the wrong side is facing again. And basically, we just want to trace around that loose stitch, and that will help tighten it up a bit. So at this point, this is where I sort of take a look and decide, where should I go in? I think the best option is going to be to go into this loop right here. Again, we kind of want to do a circle, trace around the hole, the looseness. And then I'm going to go up in here, just like that. And at this point, I'll pull the tapestry needle through. And then I'm going to go into this loop right here. And then I'm going to go back into the loop where that stitch had been coming out of. And again, then I'll just take a look and see if I'm happy with how it looks. Okay, so I just tighten that up a little bit. As you can see, I definitely feel like that definitely sort of cinched up that area pretty well. Here we go. And so then just to secure that tail, I would then do the duplicate stitch. And garter stitch is a little bit easier than when we were in stockinette stitch. So you could do the duplicate stitch around here. I'm going to show you, I'll do one here, but then I'll also utilize my 3-needle bind off seam here, because that's a nice strong seam that hides ends really well. But I will do one duplicate stitch first. So I'm going to insert into this loop here, then into this loop. And then I'm going to come back down in this loop and then back into the loop that I had started in. So that sort of traced the stitch right there. But you can also just weave into that 3-needle bind off seam. So to do that, I would just go in, let's see, I'll go in over here. Again, like I've been saying, a lot of this is trial and error. So often I'll try going into a couple of areas, then see how it looks. because really depending on the yarn that you're using, some methods are a little bit better than others. So it's always worth a try, and you can always undo it. Now, because this is close to a neck edge, I'm going to go in probably more than I would if it wasn't, just to make sure that that end won't poke through. There we go. So then I will snip that. And again, once it's done blocking, I'll shorten these tails, but before I like to usually leave a little bit of a longer. And that looks pretty good. It's definitely much more cinched up in that area than before. So one last area that I want to show you in this video is around a bind off. Now, I had done an alternate version of the sweater and I did sleeves, but this would be the same even if you had just done the little garter trim around the armhole and you didn't do sleeves. So first, let me thread my tapestry needle. Okay, so I've threaded my tapestry needle, and see how the bind off kind of is up here. Then you have that weird gap. There's tons of methods online I've seen of different ways to sort of handle this situation, but I'll show you just how I do it as I'm weaving in the end. Actually, what I want to do, because again, this is sort of, just like the other ones, it's a bit of a gap. So I want to go into the stitches right next to it. So I'm going to go into this loop here, as well as the top loop right there. And I'm going to go into that and then just cinch up, and see how that just sort of magically close it up. Now it's not completely seamless. You can see a little bit of a bump, but it does a pretty good job. And then I would turn the work inside out, and then I would insert my tapestry needle into, let's see, I'd probably go into this loop over here. And again, just sort of tightening it up a little bit. And then I would just do my regular duplicate stitch. So let's see, I would probably go into this one, then these. And then I would go back down this way. And then I would go back up here. Usually on a sleeve, I would want to make sure that my my tail is going to be kind of going away from the cuff edge. So then I would just trim it up just like this. And there you go. That's pretty good. So those are a few ways that you can weave in ends using my azalea as the example.